Hi, I'm Kendra with Where's in Astrology, and today I'm talking about Mercury and Taurus. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what Mercury is in the birth chart. Mercury is going to be your thought processes, it's going to be how you process information, it's going to be how you actually communicate and speak. So it's going to be all about your thought processes, your brain. Mercury rules the nervous system, so it's going to be all about those mental processes and communication. So with Mercury and Taurus, this actually indicates a person who has a very slow, methodical way of communicating in general. So with Mercury and Taurus, basically what's going to happen is you are putting the planet of communication in a very slow and steady Earth sign. So sometimes Mercury and Taurus people can have a little bit of what would seem to be difficulty processing information. And that doesn't actually mean that they are having a difficult time processing it. What it does mean is that they may take longer to process it. It will be more thorough, I think, than the way a lot of people process information, just because it's Taurus, and they do have like a commitment to understanding. Taurus is commitment. So they can actually understand things very, very thoroughly once they have actually taken the time to understand them. But because they have that slow, methodical way of processing information, to other people who process information more quickly, but perhaps less thoroughly, it can look like they don't understand or they're having a hard time processing information. And they do tend to speak slowly as well. They tend to kind of have more measured way of communicating. They've really thought about their words. Every word has a little bit of weight to it. Unlike, Mercury in Aries or maybe Mercury in Gemini, things can just kind of come out like quickly and they're not always very measured. Mercury in Sagittarius is like that as well. But Mercury in Taurus is going to be very measured. Even if they haven't thought through their words very well, they can just be very tactful and slow and graceful in their delivery. Taurus is ruled by Venus, so there can be a bit of a sweetness to the way they communicate. Maybe not with that oozing charm like Mercury in Libra. Maybe it wouldn't be like every word is dripping with honey, but it would be very methodical. Now, something kind of fun about Mercury and Taurus is that they tend to have sexy voices. So a lot of time, Mercury and Taurus will kind of have this slow, sensual voice. It goes kind of with that slow, methodical delivery of their words as well. So their voice will actually kind of be slow and measured and kind of sultry. And I know that a lot of my Mercury and Taurus friends have that quality to their voices. It's just more sensual. It's kind of a lower tone. And it can be very sexy. That's actually also the case with Taurus on the third house. That can be like a sexy voice as well. But anything having to do with like Venus and communication, especially Taurus, since it's so sensual, will be there'll be kind of a sexiness to their voice and their tone. For Mercury and Taurus, things have to kind of make sense to them, and I said that about Aries as well, but it's in a different way. I said Aries, things need to make sense to Aries because they think in such simple terms, Mercury and Aries, because they think in such simple terms that they have to kind of break it down to the very basic elements is how I would describe that. For Mercury and Taurus, it just has to be sensible. It has to be practical. What they are processing needs to make some kind of logical, practical sense to them. Even if it's like a far-out concept, it still needs to have some kind of grounding to it. They're not going to be very accepting of ideas that seem to have no foundation, no base from which people are building these ideas. They need to know that they are believing in something, or they are, accepting information that is acceptable. It makes logical sense, and there is a foundation to the way that they believe. There's some kind of proof, even if it's anecdotal proof. Mercury in Taurus is, that's a fixed sign. Taurus is a fixed sign, so they can be very hung up on an idea. And even when presented with conflicting evidence, even when presented with logical evidence as to why they are incorrect, that opinion, that mindset is incorrect, they can just kind of hold on to these beliefs and these ideas, regardless of what kind of information they're presented with. And a lot of times Mercury and Taurus can be a bit old-fashioned. This isn't the case with all Mercury and Taurus, but Taurus is a bit of a sign that likes tradition, can be a bit old-fashioned in general, so their ideas about things can be a little bit old-fashioned. They can get hung up on ideas of the way things should be, as opposed to the way things are going in society. They can get a little bit hung up on the way things should be, and if they can kind of move past that, the whole, should this, should that, I think I saw my life going this way, they can be a lot happier. They can let go a little bit of some of those ideas about how things should have been and just surrender to what is. Be a little bit more flexible. I know that's very difficult for Taurus, but that's something that can really cause you a lot of problems when you have Mercury in Taurus, is just getting hung up on these ideas of how things should be, how things should have been, and get too hung up on that to the point where you can't be happy because things didn't go that way. That can be a big Mercury in Taurus, or really Mercury in any fixed sign, problem, because it's fixed. You're fixed on this idea. It can be very hard for you. So the way that Mercury and Taurus would best learn, I think, is first of all, if you're being taught by someone, if someone is teaching you information, it would be really important for that person to be patient with you, to give you time to process that information instead of trying to rush you through it or thinking that you just don't get it, you're dumb or whatever, because you're taking your time to process it. You would need someone who could kind of understand that, yeah, you may be taking your time, but you're learning this information thoroughly. It would also be really great for you to be involved in things that are hands-on, things that let you touch things. And I mentioned in my Mercury and Aries video that we like to touch things too, but that's a little bit more about being actively involved in the learning process, because Aries is about action. For Taurus, it would really be more about those sensations. Like if you can capture a sensation in your mind and you can capture the way, it felt to learn the information, or if there can be some kind of physical stimulation that goes with this new information that can kind of trigger a memory. For instance, a lot of people will chew M&Ms while they study. They'll reward themselves with M&Ms as they study, or if they get an answer right when they're quizzing themselves, they'll reward themselves with some M&Ms. I think that would be a great study tactic for Mercury and Taurus. Taurus is about those sensual pleasures, and food is a big part of that. It's a big joke in the astrological community, but it could actually be something that is a great tactic for you, rewarding yourself with sensual pleasure as you learn. But if you can be involved in the learning process in a sensual way to begin with, you can be actually physically in an environment where you can learn this information in a practical way. So, learning about nature out in nature, learning about marine life in an aquarium, that would be really good for Mercury and Taurus, because you're putting yourself in real life, physical world situations that activate some kind of sensory pleasure for you. Beautiful nature, beautiful marine life, whatever it is, something that can activate your senses, something that can please your senses and give you some kind of real world grounding in the way that you're processing this information as well. Mercury in Taurus, I wanted to say also, is a great listener, because they do have that fixed energy, so they can really hone in on you. When you're speaking to them, they are listening to every word. They are fixed in their attention, they have focused attention, and they're really listening to what you say. It's not like more distractible signs like Sagittarius, Gemini, Aries. These might have a little bit of a harder time listening and just kind of be waiting for their turn to speak. That's one of the gifts of Mercury and Taurus, I think, is just the ability to really listen to someone and fully understand their perspective, and then come back with something that is measured. They can really fully understand the perspective. So I think that Mercury and Taurus could actually be great for, mediation, making peace with other people, because they know how to fully understand someone else's perspective, and then they can have a more measured approach to making peace once they have that understanding. They can have a more measured approach to finding some kind of balance in that situation. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Mercury and Taurus. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I did want to remind you that I have all kinds of readings in my shop, and I'm leaving the link to that in the description of this video. I have birth chart readings, I have relationship readings, I have Mercury report readings, and that would be like a mini reading. Once again, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and have a great day.